Attractiveness has almost nothing to do with how you look. And the reason people you consider less attractive than you are getting more attention, more opportunities, more of everything is because they figured out something about social presence that nobody ever taught you. You know that person. They walk into a room and something shifts. Heads turn not because of symmetry or style, but because of something harder to name. An energy, a gravity. People want to be near them. Meanwhile, you've been optimizing the wrong things. Better clothes, better skin, better hair, and you're still invisible in the ways that actually matter. Here's what most people miss. Attraction is not a reaction to appearance, it's a response to presence. And presence is made of specific, learnable social skills that most people never develop. In the next minutes, I'm going to show you the 5 skills that separate the people everyone wants to be around from the people everyone forgets. These aren't personality traits you either have or don't. They're behaviors, things you can start doing differently in the next conversation you have. Let's get into it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are trying to be attractive by being impressive. They name drop. They talk about their achievements. They fill every silence with evidence of their value. And all of it signals the same thing. I'm not sure I'm enough. And nothing kills attraction faster than that signal. The desperation to be seen as worthy is the least attractive thing a human being can broadcast. And most people are broadcasting it constantly without knowing it. Princeton researchers found that attraction assessments form within seconds based almost entirely on behavioral signals, not physical ones. Specifically, how much someone appeared to need approval from the room. The less you needed it, the more attractive you registered. Not because indifference is appealing, because self-containment is. Skill 1. Selective attention. Divided attention is social suicide. The moment someone senses you're half present composing your next sentence, scanning who just walked in, performing listening instead of actually doing it, you've already lost them. Not because they're offended, because they feel it. That low-grade signal of being processed rather than seen. And processed people don't feel attracted. They feel dismissed. Harvard researchers studying interpersonal attraction found one variable that predicted likability more reliably than any other. Whether the other person felt like the most important person in the room while you were talking to them. Not the most entertained, the most important. And that feeling comes entirely from attention that isn't divided. Phone away, not face down. Eyes on them, not scanning the room. Listening to understand, not to respond. This sounds simple. It is almost never done. Which means the moment you do it genuinely, not as a technique, you become extraordinary. Because you've given someone the rarest thing in the modern world. Your full, unhurried presence. And they will remember how that felt long after they've forgotten what you said. Skill 2. Comfortable silence. The person who can sit in silence without flinching is always the most powerful person in the room. And power, not dominance, not aggression, but quiet, unshakable self-containment is one of the most deeply attractive qualities a human being can possess. Watch what happens when silence falls in a social situation. Almost everyone rushes to fill it. A nervous joke, an irrelevant observation, anything to escape the discomfort. And that scramble signals one thing: I need you to like me. MIT researchers found that individuals who tolerated silence longest were consistently rated as more confident, more attractive, and more worth listening to when they did speak. The silence wasn't the problem. The fear of it was. If you leave this video and still scramble to fill every pause, you don't have a social problem. You have a permission problem. Permission to let the moment breathe. Permission to not be entertaining every second. The people who are most magnetic in any room have given themselves that permission. And everyone around them feels it. Skill 3. Asking the question behind the question. Most people ask surface questions and get surface answers and walk away wondering why no one feels close to them. The skill that changes this is learning to hear not just what someone says, but what they mean underneath it. Someone says, "I'm fine." After a hard week, they might mean they've stopped expecting anyone to actually ask. The question behind the question, fine, like you've processed it, or fine like you're just done talking about it. Someone says, "I'm thinking about making a change." They might mean they've already decided and they're waiting to see if anyone will talk them out of it. The question behind the question, what's the part you haven't said out loud yet? Someone says, "It's whatever, doesn't matter, it always matters." That's why they mentioned it. It sounds like it matters a little. What happened? These questions make people stop. They produce a look that says, "How did you know to ask that?" And in that moment, you've done something almost nobody does. You've seen them more clearly than they expected to be seen. Yale researchers on emotional attunement found that feeling accurately perceived by another person activates the same neural reward pathways as physical attraction. Skill 4, leading with warmth before wit. There's a version of social attractiveness that relies on being sharp, quick, clever, the person with the perfect comeback, the dry observation, the line that makes the whole room laugh, and that works for about 10 minutes. Because wit without warmth is just performance, and performance, sustained long enough, becomes exhausting to be around. The most consistently attractive people in any room are the ones who make you feel safe before they make you feel impressed. Warmth first, wit second, always. Warmth is not softness. It's not excessive friendliness or performing positivity. It's simply the signal through eye contact, through tone, through the through the quality of your attention that this person is not a threat, that you can relax, that you don't have to be impressive here. Columbia researchers found that warmth ratings in first interactions were twice as predictive of continued attraction as any other variable, including humor, intelligence, and physical appearance. You can be the funniest person in the room and still be someone people don't come back to. Be the warmest person in the room and they'll find you regardless of what you said. Skill 5, knowing when to stop talking. This is the skill nobody teaches because it requires something most people aren't willing to do. Trust that you've already said enough. The most attractive communicators in any setting share one trait that has nothing to do with what they say. It's what they don't say. They make their point and they let it land. They don't qualify. They don't over-explain. They don't circle back to the thing they already said to make sure you got it. They said it. It was enough. Moving on. Every sentence you add after your point is made slightly dilutes the sentence before it. Does that make sense? After a perfectly clear thought signals. I don't trust what I just said. And if you don't trust it, why should they? Northwestern researchers found that individuals who used fewer words were rated as significantly more competent, more attractive, and more worth listening to than those who elaborated beyond the point of clarity. Say the thing. Stop. Let the silence hold it. That's the move. Here's what ties all 5 together, and it's the thing most people spend their entire lives missing. Every single one of these skills is a form of self-containment. You don't need to fill the silence. You don't need to impress them. You don't need to over-explain yourself. You don't need to ask the safe question. You don't need to keep talking past the point. And that not needing, that quiet, unperformed sufficiency is the most attractive thing you can walk into a room with. Because needy is the one thing no amount of looks, humor, or charm can fix. And self-contained is the one thing that makes everything else work. When you build these 5 skills, 3 things happen. People start remembering you differently, not as someone who was there, but as someone who made them feel something. Conversations start going somewhere neither of you expected. And something shifts in how you carry yourself because when you stop performing for rooms, you stop being exhausted by them. So here's what it comes down to. Give your full attention once and mean it. Let one silence breathe without filling it. Ask the question behind the question in your next real conversation. Lead with warmth before you lead with anything else. And when you've made your point, stop. Don't announce you're working on any of this, just show up differently and let it be obvious. If one of these hit different, the next video breaks down why most people can't do skill 1 even when they try. The reason is stranger than you'd expect. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Come back in 90 days and tell me how people treat you. Not how you feel how they treat you, because understanding these skills means nothing. Being the person in the room who actually has them, that's everything.